On a warm, sunny weekend, Olivia Harper, a distinguished black female military officer, stepped into a local supermarket. She had just returned from a rigorous tour of duty and opted for a simple white shirt, blue jeans and sneakers, leaving behind her uniform and the accolades it carried. To the world, she looked like any other shopper, but her presence carried the quiet strength of someone who had led countless soldiers in challenging missions. The supermarket buzzed with its usual energy, carts squeaking and conversations blending into the background hum. For Olivia, this was a rare moment of peace, a chance to pick up essentials and unwind. She navigated the aisles, appreciating the mundane task as a welcome escape. At the end of one aisle, however, a scene broke her focus. A tall man in a police uniform, later identified as Officer Brad Taylor, carelessly dropped a pack of noodles and a bottle of soda. The items tumbled onto the floor, creating an obstacle in the crowded aisle. Rather than pick them up, Brad glanced at the mess, smirked, and walked on as if nothing had happened. Olivia's training as a soldier emphasized discipline, responsibility, and integrity. Watching the blatant disregard for others irked her. Suppressing her frustration, she approached him with calm authority. "Excuse me, sir," she said, her voice steady. "You've dropped something. It would be considerate to pick it up so no one gets hurt or inconvenienced." Brad turned slowly, his eyes narrowing. He scanned Olivia with a condescending gaze, his smirk growing into an arrogant grin. "And who do you think you are to tell me what to do?" he sneered. "I don't waste my time on such trivial matters." The words hung in the air, laced with an undertone that Olivia knew all too well. His tone, his gaze, the entire demeanor spoke volumes, not just arrogance but an unspoken prejudice, a challenge to her very presence. For a moment, Olivia held her ground, her composure unshaken. She had faced far greater adversities on battlefields, where lives were at stake, but there was something about Brad's brazen disrespect that felt personal. She didn't flinch. "You're wearing that uniform," Olivia said, her voice sharp but composed. "It represents authority, yes, but also accountability. If you can't act responsibly in a supermarket, how can anyone trust you in more critical situations?" Brad's face darkened, his posture stiffening. "You're out of line," he snapped. "Stay in your lane." But Olivia had no intention of stepping back. Her unshakable confidence only seemed to provoke him further. The atmosphere around them grew tense, drawing the attention of nearby shoppers. As Brad's frustration escalated, his hand drifted toward his holster, not in immediate aggression, but enough to send a clear message. The sight of his fingers brushing the weapon made the air heavy with unease. Still, Olivia didn't waver. With measured calm, she reached for her phone and made a single call. What happened next shocked everyone. Within minutes, the doors of the supermarket swung open and another high-ranking officer entered. A general Olivia had served under and who happened to be in the area. Their arrival wasn't just a show of solidarity, but a reminder that power comes not from arrogance, but from mutual respect and justice. Brad froze, the color draining from his face as he realized the weight of the situation. Meanwhile, the general addressed the crowd and reaffirmed the values of accountability, respect, and fairness, values Olivia embodied. The supermarket had transformed into a stage, the aisles lined with silent onlookers holding their breath. Olivia Harper stood firm, her posture straight and composed, even as Brad Taylor's mocking laughter echoed around them. His words were designed to provoke, his tone dripping with disdain, but Olivia refused to let his ignorance and bigotry dictate her reaction. "You're just a common black woman," Brad sneered, his arms crossed arrogantly. "I don't take orders from people like you." The words stung, not because Olivia hadn't heard such prejudice before, but because they represented the very injustice she had dedicated her life to fighting against. Yet, instead of anger, she felt a deep sense of resolve. This wasn't just about her. It was about the countless others who faced similar discrimination and indignity. Taking a steady breath, Olivia locked eyes with Brad, her voice calm but cutting. I've spent my life serving this country, protecting the very freedoms you enjoy. And despite your uniform, it's clear you don't understand what responsibility truly means. Your behavior doesn't reflect strength. It reflects weakness. Her words hung in the air like a challenge, but Brad only scoffed. Protecting freedoms. Don't make me laugh. You don't intimidate me, and you never will. I'm the one in control here. From the corner of her eye, Olivia noticed several bystanders recording the confrontation. The weight of the moment wasn't lost on her. This wasn't just a personal clash. It had become a public reckoning. Control? Olivia said, her voice unwavering. Control isn't about shouting or wielding authority over others. It's about respect, discipline, and understanding the weight of your actions. Right now, you're showing everyone here what happens when power is given to the wrong hands. Brad's face flushed with anger. He stepped closer, his towering frame attempting to intimidate. But Olivia didn't flinch. She had faced far worse. Threats in combat zones, and a man with an inflated ego was hardly a challenge. I don't care about your speeches, Brad snarled. You're wasting your breath. The tension in the air was palpable as the crowd murmured quietly, their unease growing. But before Brad could say anything more, Olivia took another step forward, her voice rising just enough to silence the room. Enough, she said firmly. Your arrogance has blinded you to the truth. You're not above the law, and neither am I. But here's the difference. I know what it means to honor it. And whether you like it or not, there will be consequences for your actions today. Brad's confidence faltered for the first time, but he quickly masked it with a bitter laugh. Consequences? From who? You think calling the manager or filing a report will scare me? Olivia didn't respond immediately. Instead, she reached into her pocket and retrieved her phone. With calm precision, she dialed a number. Within moments, the sound of boots on polished tiles echoed through the store. The crowd parted as a group of military police officers entered, their presence commanding immediate attention. At their lead was General Marcus Green, a towering figure with an air of authority that couldn't be ignored. Olivia, General Green said, his tone warm yet professional. Is everything all right here? Brad's face turned pale as he recognized the insignias on the officers' uniforms. His bravado dissolved, replaced by a flicker of panic. Olivia turned to the general, her expression composed. Thank you for coming, sir. I believe this officer needs a reminder of what accountability looks like. The general's sharp gaze fell on Brad, who now seemed to shrink under the weight of the situation. Officer Taylor, Green said, his voice stern, your actions here have not only embarrassed yourself but undermined the integrity of the uniform you wear. There will be an investigation into this incident, and I assure you, justice will be served. The room erupted in hushed whispers as Brad's defiance crumbled. The crowd, once hesitant observers, now watched with a mix of relief and admiration for Olivia's courage. The supermarket was deathly silent, the atmosphere taut as a string stretched to its limit. All eyes were on Olivia Harper and Officer Brad Taylor. Olivia stood firm, her arms crossed, a picture of composure in the face of escalating hostility. Brad, however, had reached his boiling point. His arrogance and unchecked temper drove him to pull his gun, the barrel pointing directly at Olivia. Gasps rippled through the crowd, and some shoppers scrambled for cover, fearing the worst. But Olivia did not flinch. She had stared down more dangerous threats in her lifetime. The weapon in Brad's hand might have scared an untrained civilian, but to Olivia, it was just another test of her discipline and resolve. Her voice was steady, but her tone carried an edge of warning. Put the gun down, Brad. You're not only violating your oath as an officer, you're endangering innocent lives. Do you think this makes you look powerful? It doesn't. It only exposes your weakness. Brad's hand shook slightly, though he tried to mask it with bravado. You think you're so smart, don't you? He spat. You think you can walk in here, lecture me, and get away with it? I'll show you who's in charge. The crowd, now partly hidden behind shelves and carts, held their breath. Several phones were still recording, capturing every second of the tense standoff. Olivia stepped forward, her movements slow and deliberate. "I've been in situations far more dangerous than this, Brad," she said. "I've seen fear, hatred, and violence up close, and I've always chosen to stand for what's right. You, on the other hand, are letting your insecurities control you. Lower the weapon before you do something you'll regret for the rest of your life." Brad's face flushed with anger, but her unwavering calm seemed to throw him off. For a brief moment, he hesitated, the barrel of the gun dipping slightly. Before he could react further, the sound of hurried footsteps echoed through the store. A squad of military police officers stormed in, their presence swift and commanding. At their head was General Marcus Green, the same officer Olivia had contacted earlier. "Officer Taylor," General Green's voice cut through the tension like a blade. "Lower your weapon immediately." The authority in the general's voice was undeniable. Brad froze, his bravado replaced by uncertainty. He glanced around, realizing he was outnumbered and his actions had escalated far beyond his control. Slowly, reluctantly, he lowered the gun. The military police quickly disarmed him, taking him into custody. Brad's defiance melted into humiliation as he was led away. His arrogance now replaced with the stark realization of the consequences he would face. As the tension dissipated, the crowd began to murmur, many expressing relief and admiration for Olivia's bravery. General Green approached her, his expression a mix of respect and concern. "You handled yourself remarkably, Olivia," he said, "but you shouldn't have had to face this alone." Olivia nodded, her composure finally softening. "Thank you, sir. It wasn't just about me, it was about standing up to injustice. People like Brad abuse their power, and it's up to us to hold them accountable." The air inside the supermarket was thick with tension, every eye shifting between Olivia Harper and Brad Taylor. Brad, still clutching his gun, looked more rattled with each passing second, while Olivia remained calm and composed, her confidence unwavering. The sound of the luxury car's horn outside was a turning point. Moments later, the door opened and Mayor Thomas Caldwell stepped in. His presence was commanding, his sharp suit and steady stride radiating authority. Behind him were two city police officers, their hands on their holstered weapons, ready to intervene. The mayor scanned the room, his sharp eyes landing on Brad, whose defiance faltered under the scrutiny. Without wasting a moment, the mayor addressed the room, his voice firm and clear. "What is going on here?" Caldwell demanded, his tone cutting through the thick silence like a knife. Brad, now visibly shaken, quickly tried to justify himself. "Sir, this woman, she was causing a disturbance, and I—" But the mayor raised his hand, silencing him. "I don't want excuses. Lower your weapon. Now." Brad hesitated for a split second before finally lowering his gun, his arrogance crumbling under the weight of the situation. The city police officers stepped forward, taking the gun from him and restraining him. The mayor then turned to Olivia, his expression softening with recognition. "Colonel Harper," he said, his tone respectful. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine, Mr. Mayor," Olivia replied, her voice steady. "But this man's actions have endangered everyone in this store. His behavior is unacceptable, and I demand accountability." Caldwell nodded, his face grim. He turned back to Brad, who was now being held by the officers. "Officer Taylor, you have disgraced your badge and endangered innocent lives. Your actions will not go unchecked. You are hereby suspended, effective immediately, pending a full investigation." Brad's face turned pale. "But sir, Enough!" The mayor snapped. "You've done enough damage. Take him out of here." The officers escorted Brad out of the store as the crowd erupted into hushed murmurs. Some clapped softly, while others shook their heads in disbelief at what had just transpired. As the tension in the supermarket began to dissipate, Mayor Caldwell turned back to Olivia. "Colonel Harper, I owe you and everyone here an apology. This should never have happened." Olivia gave a slight nod. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. But this isn't just about me. This is about ensuring that no one, regardless of their rank, background, or the color of their skin, ever has to face such blatant abuse of power again. Caldwell nodded solemnly. You have my word. There will be reforms to prevent incidents like this, and Officer Taylor will face the full consequences of his actions. The crowd began to disperse, some stopping to thank Olivia for her bravery. Phones were still recording as people shared the story of the woman who had stood up to injustice without backing down. As Olivia left the store, the weight of the incident still lingered, but she knew she had done the right thing. It wasn't just a confrontation. It was a statement, a reminder that no matter how deep-rooted prejudice and abuse of power might be, courage and integrity could still rise above it. Mayor Robert Clark handed the phone back to the young woman after watching the video, his expression a mix of disappointment and controlled anger. The crowd, sensing the gravity of the situation, stood silently, their attention fully on the confrontation. Brad Taylor's confidence crumbled as the mayor turned his sharp gaze back to him. Officer Taylor, the mayor began, his tone cold and deliberate. The evidence speaks for itself. Not only did you insult a decorated military officer with racist and sexist remarks, but you also endangered innocent lives by recklessly drawing your weapon. Do you deny any of this? Brad stammered, his arrogance replaced with desperation. Sir, I was just... The mayor raised his hand, silencing him. Enough. Your actions today have not only disgraced this city's police department, but have also revealed a deep-seated bias that has no place in any uniform. Turning to the two police officers who had entered with him, the mayor gave a firm order. Disarm Officer Taylor and escort him to the station. He is to be relieved of duty effective immediately. A full investigation will follow, and he will face the consequences of his actions. The officers complied, approaching Brad cautiously. Brad, now visibly shaken, offered no resistance as they removed his weapon and escorted him out of the supermarket. The crowd began to murmur, a mixture of relief and disbelief rippling through the room. The mayor turned back to Olivia, his demeanor softening. Colonel Harper, on behalf of this city, I want to apologize for the behavior you endured today. Your composure and courage in the face of such blatant injustice are truly commendable. Olivia nodded, her voice steady. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, but this isn't just about me. It's about ensuring that this doesn't happen to anyone else, regardless of their background. The mayor nodded in agreement. You have my word that this incident will serve as a turning point. There will be reforms, and Officer Taylor's actions will not be swept under the rug. This city owes its freedom and safety to individuals like you, and we will not tolerate such disrespect. As the mayor spoke, the crowd began to clap, their applause growing louder as more people joined in. Several individuals approached Olivia, thanking her for standing up against injustice and for her service to the country. The young woman who had recorded the incident stepped forward. Colonel Harper, she said timidly, thank you for showing us how to stand up for what's right. I'll make sure everyone knows what really happened here today. Olivia gave her a small, grateful smile. Sometimes it takes courage from everyone, not just one person, to make a difference. Share the truth, and don't be afraid to speak out. As the supermarket slowly returned to normal, Olivia walked out with her head held high. The events of the day were unsettling, but she knew they had sparked a conversation that could lead to change. The mayor's promise to address systemic issues and the crowd's support gave her hope that justice would prevail. For Olivia, the incident wasn't just a confrontation with one man's prejudice. It was a reminder of the battles still left to fight. And as she left, the crowd knew they had witnessed something powerful, a lesson in integrity, strength, and the refusal to back down in the face of discrimination. The tension in the air was palpable as Mayor Clark stood tall, his gaze locked onto Officer Brad. His expression was stern, his voice resonating with authority. Do you honestly believe you can use your position as a police officer to intimidate an innocent civilian, regardless of who they are? Not only have you misused your power, but you've also insulted a retired army colonel who spent his life defending this nation. Do you understand the gravity of your actions? Brad had no response. His head dropped, and he stammered, muttering feeble excuses. But the crowd around them was unmoved. Nobody took notice of his attempt to defend himself. With a swift gesture, the mayor signaled to the arriving police officers, instructing them to disarm Brad and take him into custody. "I will ensure an immediate suspension and a full investigation," the mayor declared, his voice unyielding. Brad screamed, struggling against the officers as they seized his weapon. "This is wrong! I'm a police officer! You can't do this to me!" But his words fell on deaf ears. The crowd watched as Brad was escorted out, their faces a mixture of relief and satisfaction. Turning back to Olivia, who had been caught in the conflict, the mayor's expression softened. "Olivia Harper, I apologize on behalf of this city. The actions of this officer bring shame to our entire police force." Olivia nodded in acknowledgement. "Thank you, Mayor. But I don't want anyone else to experience what I just did. Our system needs to be led by responsible individuals, not those who abuse their power." The mayor agreed, promising to personally oversee the investigation. As Olivia left the supermarket, the crowd lining the aisles erupted into applause, some even approaching her to offer apologies for not stepping in sooner. Olivia smiled, knowing that the lesson had extended far beyond just Brad. Everyone who witnessed it had learned something important. Days passed, and the consequences of Officer Brad Taylor's actions became clear. He was officially dismissed from the police force, and a thorough investigation was launched to address the deep-rooted issues of culture and accountability within the department. The community's demand for change was loud and clear, and it seemed the authorities were finally listening. Meanwhile, Olivia Harper, though thrust into the spotlight by the viral incident, remained focused on her work. She didn't seek fame, but she understood that the fight for justice required each person to stand firm, no matter the obstacles or hardships along the way. She was determined to continue her efforts, knowing that the real battle was far from over. The story of Olivia's bravery spread far and wide, sparking conversations about power, racism, and accountability. People everywhere began to reflect on the importance of responsibility and respect for one another, especially in positions of authority. But Olivia didn't see herself as a hero. She was just doing what she believed was right. As for Brad Taylor, his downfall served as a stark reminder of the consequences of abusing power. But the focus remained on the steps being taken to prevent such incidents in the future. The town's resolve to create a more just and fair system was now stronger than ever.